Cool. Welcome everyone to Movement Building from Home Week 1. We're going to talk about online meetings today. My name's Abby. I'm one of the organizers, and Chad is the other organizer. He's walking around. There he is, waving. So we're both on the MozFest team, and we're really excited to bring this to you in a time when a lot of people are suddenly moving to organizing online. And we know that a lot of our allies are doing this, and a lot of our allies have done this for a long time. So we thought this would be a good way to sort of bring you all together to learn from each other, and also for us to learn as we're planning for MozFest coming up. So you should all have the notes. I'd share them in the chat, but you can't click on them in there anymore. So check your calendar invites or look at the blog post. But yeah, the notes are in there. So sign your name in the roll calls. Many of you have. Thanks for that. We're using this to both keep track of who showed up, but also as a nice way to follow up with people after the call. If you found someone you want to collaborate with, or someone has a cool idea you want to follow up with. Yeah, put your name in the roll call so people can follow up with you. And then answer one of these check-in questions. How are you doing today? What are you working on? What do you need from this call? And this is a nice place to show what it is you're doing for possible collaborations. So yeah, answer one of those questions. Pretty good. I didn't answer how I'm doing. I did take a nap earlier today. So I'm doing actually really good, slightly groggy, but better than yesterday, I'd say. I was really tired yesterday. Chad was there, he knows. All right, so we are using Zoom for this call. We'll talk about why we picked Zoom later on when we're talking about why we choose platforms, but we did, it is nice for larger groups like this. I'd encourage you to try out the gallery view. So in the top right-hand corner of Zoom, you can switch between speaker view and gallery view. And gallery view is a nice way to sort of feel like you are talking to a group, and you can sort of see many people's avatars or faces if they have their camera on. So it's a nice way to sort of, you're not just talking to a screen. These notes are for you, so feel free to hack these as much as you want. You can take notes as people are speaking. You can ask other people questions, add comments, GIFs, however you want. These are for you. Don't feel like you're writing something in the wrong place. Everything here is for you to write on. And with that, I'll pass it on to Chad.
Hey, thank you. We're going to start each call with a reminder of our community participation guidelines. These are towards, I guess, the bottom of page 2 at the moment. But we are here to be respectful, honest, inclusive, accommodating, appreciative, and open to learning from everybody else. We will not attack, demean, disrupt, harass, or threaten others or encourage any such behavior. If you'd like to take a look at our entire CPG, you can find those near the bottom of page 2 at line 70-ish if you have your line numbers on. And if there's something you'd like to talk about further, or if you have an issue to report, you can contact either Abby or me, or you can come to us or someone else in Mozilla if you'd be more comfortable reporting to somebody else. Abby, you can talk about our goals today?
I will, yeah. So the goals for this call, we did want to check in with the community. It's been a while since we've checked in with many of you and hold space to listen to each other. We want to share some advice for successful online meetings, both from our perspective as Mozilla, but also to hear from you. And then also to understand the challenges and opportunities that online meetings brings to movement building. It's very different organizing online, so we want to hear from your experience also. Yeah, what we can learn from that. Chad.
And so to begin, we wanted to take a little bit of time to share with one another some, just what's going on in our community, what's going on with our experiences in kind of this new and uncertain space. And we're at item 4 now, near line about 80, top of page 3. And we would love to take about maybe 5 minutes or so to do something that we just call silent documenting. When we were on Etherpad, it was silent Etherpadding, but we moved off that platform, so we just call it silent documenting now. And it's meant as kind of a reflective way for everyone involved in a call to have a chance to think, take a few moments, and decide, something that they want to share with the group. If you'd rather do it out loud, I can totally take notes for you, but I'm going to put 5 minutes on my timer and just ask you to go ahead and to think and to type a little bit about what has been working in your online meetings as you've pivoted to do more and more organizing online in response to the global crisis. And then what challenges have you faced? And it's okay if you don't take the whole 5 minutes. It's okay if you kind of want to pass, but as people add and contribute here, Another thing you can do is just kind of scan the other responses when you're done or as they come in, and +1 the things that you're also experiencing as a success or a challenge. Or just ask some questions that will help unpack maybe a little bit of what somebody said. Can you tell me more? What are you all doing to try to address that? Questions like that are invitations to share more. But those are the prompts. What have been some successes in your pivoting to more and more online work? And then what are some challenges you're facing? Any questions? Right. Again, if you'd rather do it out loud, I can totally take notes for you, but I'm going to put 5 minutes on the timer, and then we'll come back to notice some trends, surface and bookmark anything for discussion later on. All right, 5 minutes, here we go. We're about halfway through, so if you've been thinking about successes and you have any challenges to share, now's a great time to move down the document just a little bit. Also a great time if you've shared a few things to go ahead and start reviewing what others have contributed, +1, ask some questions and the like. So a little bit under a minute left, so great time to kind of draw a thought to a close, maybe look for something that you might want to +1 or invite some more discussion about. And we'll all be back together here in a moment just to surface anything we'd like to surface before we move on. All right, that puts us at time for this part of the agenda. We definitely want to get you out here on time. We realize it's a little late in the day for some of you. But would anyone like to share anything out loud, either that they've typed or something that they saw that they think is especially important for us to take note of together, or like a trend or a pattern that you saw? Maybe if we could have 2 to 3 people share, that'd be great before we go on. And we don't, you can use the hand raise feature and we'll respond to that. But we just encourage you to kind of take a look at the gallery view and read the Zoom room, so to speak, and to find a moment to contribute. Anything really cool or like a common struggle that you just like to raise up as something before we go on?
It's interesting to see how many people +1'd the collaborative documents and the strong facilitation, like everyone knows the host is.
Yeah, like structure, right? Both in terms of facilitation and documentation has come up a lot across the calls.
And I do really like how Tim pointed out active listening. I feel like that's not something we've heard too much of, but it's important in any meeting, I think.
For sure. Anything else anyone would like to share or bring up?
Hi, everyone. My name's Dee.
Thank you.
And this might be silly, but for some reason, Zoom backgrounds is a thing. It's such a conversation starter. And those surprises don't happen as often nowadays. Everything has to be pre-planned. And even yesterday, I had a chance encounter with someone I knew on Zoom at a meeting. And so I was like, whoa, it didn't happen. It hasn't happened in like 3 weeks now.
Yeah, missing some of the kind of happy collisions of networking that's come up.
Hearing about, this is Ryan, hearing about active listening also makes me think a little bit about reflecting back to people what was helpful to hear. Like when you're in in-person meetings, you get, you can read body language and things like that and know that something that something's being understood or something's been helpful. And so we definitely try to make a practice on our team of actually verbally saying, oh, that was really helpful to talk through and here is why, or things like that. That's been something helpful to us.
Thank you, Ryan. I think that is probably a good point for us to move on here, given time and what we'd like to be able to do in this call together today. But thank you all so much for sharing here. These are great insights. And these notes will stay here, as Abby said, they're meant for you, they're meant to be living. You can keep reviewing, adding more, finding folks in the roll call you want to continue conversations with in this document, or maybe in the MozFest Slack community. And let's move on together. And Abby's going to talk a little bit about our approach to running online meetings now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I saw a couple comments about like choosing a platform, specifically if Zoom is banned at your university. How do you choose what to do next? So I'll tell you our process when we were choosing platforms and thinking about accessibility, and we wanted people to join. I do think first off, it is important to assess your community needs for privacy and security. We knew that this was going to be a public call that we're recording. If people had issues with the privacy and security here, they could watch the recording afterwards and maybe join in the doc. But we were willing to use Zoom, even though it does have some issues, mostly for the stability for a large call. We wanted as many people as possible to join. And we also really like the breakout room feature. I think that helps a lot with conversation and just having you get to know each other. So we listed a few other options in the doc, and please add your own. I know everyone's been adding things I have never heard of. But if like Jitsi is great, it's open source. It's great for smaller meetings. Not as stable as Zoom, I'd say. Google Hangouts, Google Meet, people have been using that a lot. If I was having a truly sensitive conversation, I'd probably use Signal instead of Zoom. So just knowing where you are and then making sure the content fits like the privacy and security associated with that platform. I've never used Mumble. And I don't think anyone's actually suggested Mumble before this, but thank you for that suggestion used by gamers. People have suggested Discord, that's been popular. Yeah, and please add more there. So for video conferencing, there's always trade-offs with whatever platform you choose, but just making sure you understand the differences between them all. It's really helpful. And there is an article that's linked in the resources below afterwards. We can point that out, that compares a bunch of these video conferencing platforms. That might be helpful. And I've never heard of this TPX, Talks. Okay, cool, I'm learning so much. The next one's collaborative notes. We are using Google Docs here, but if you're collaborating with anyone in China, this can be an issue. They'll have to use a VPN to get on usually. So there are a lot of other options. There's HackMD, which uses Markdown. I found that's pretty good if you know Markdown. If you don't, it can be a little confusing. We used to use Etherpad a lot. We did run into some security issues, which is why we moved on to Google Docs, because it is easier to close off access to a Google Doc afterwards. Where with Etherpad, it was just always open. We had some issues with that. Dropbox Paper, when I was researching things to move on to after Etherpad, I almost went with Dropbox Paper, but we went with Google Docs instead. But I really like the feature with Paper. They let you can see who wrote what, which is kind of nice. And there are many more. And then for chat, there's Slack. Everyone knows about Slack. But for open source alternatives, there's the Matrix, not the Matrix. There's Matrix and Mattermost. Those are both great. We also used to use Gitter quite a bit. And that has nice integration with GitHub repos. And Signal, again, for chat, especially if it's like a private chat. So just knowing where you are and just adjusting what kind of sensitive information you're sharing based on the platform. Oh yeah, IRC. I don't know why I didn't write that one down. IRC, the old school chat. Telegram, yes. Discord again. Cool. So thanks everyone for adding new things. And if you have like a summary of like why this one's good or like what you would use it for, we found that's been really helpful for people. So if you know it's like for privacy and security, or this one's for like because it's open source. Yeah. Oh, Mastodon. I forgot about Mastodon. Yeah. Keybase. Excellent. Cool. So for the rest of this, for the tips we're sharing, these are things you've already experienced by being on the call. So it's just kind of to verbalize how we do things. So firstly, having that collaborative notes, but then we like to start with the roll call as a check-in. So that's a nice way to make sure everyone who's attending understands that they're invited to write in these documents and that they can write. It's not just a static agenda where you have to listen to us, but you can actually put input here. And yeah, having the roll call with people's social media afterwards makes it easy for us to follow up with people afterwards. Yeah. And for people who can't attend, they can look at the notes and see who did attend and maybe reach out to a few folks. So it is nice to help with the asynchronous communication if people can't make your time zone. Sorry, my oven is singing to me. I think the preheat is done. For the next piece, having multiple forms of contribution. When we're in person, it's normally whoever's speaking is who we get to hear. But this way, with the shared notes, we can also write and be seen. It can be really difficult to hear from all 24 of you. That would take up most of the time, just doing that check-in. So this way, we're able to speed that up, still hear from all of you, and all that info's there, but we're able to move on in our agenda and cover more content. Yeah, so we do love silent documenting. You get so much more info from people by just spending 5 minutes silent documenting rather than 5 minutes slowly unmuting. Maybe we'd probably get through maybe 4 or 5 of you if we were unmuting and just sharing verbally. So this was a great way to sort of hear many ideas, and we were able to raise some patterns by seeing all the +1s as people were sharing what resonated with them. For another mode of contribution, having a note taker I find is really helpful for people who maybe do want to participate by speaking, but other people really participate well by taking notes. And I know Chad is a huge fan of shared note taking. So having everyone take notes as what's happening here, like Grant's writing his commentary, weekly retrospectives, that Grant's saying there. And then asynchronous contribution. So yeah, having the doc here standalone, it lets us move on to the next item. If people still have questions, they can go back and ask questions in the doc still, if that made sense. So that way the agenda can keep moving forward, but people can still add their answers to the check-in, and they can still ask questions to the previous speaker. It also helps with people who are joining late. Maybe they had some connection issues. They can see everything that's happened and be pretty caught up and just know and then be able to jump into the conversation. Yeah. Robust documentation is always very helpful for calls, both for people who can't make the call and also so you remember what happened. So we are recording this one. It will be captioned. We've seen the captions that have gone up on YouTube already, and they're pretty accurate, which is exciting. That helps a lot with accessibility. And then summarizing on other channels. So if we knew someone couldn't make it, we try to summarize and point out the parts where they want to come in. And then they can come in, ask their questions, maybe tag a few people and follow up afterwards. And breakout rooms is the next item. You will be experiencing a breakout room soon. If you haven't done a breakout room in Zoom yet, it's my favorite thing. But breakout rooms generally like a smaller Zoom call with a subset of the participants in the main call. So yeah, formula we like to use is a breakout room of 3 to 4 people. Give them maybe 2 or 3 prompts for 10 to 15 minutes. We find that works pretty well. If you have only 2 people in a room, there's a good chance that like one person's audio doesn't work, or there's some technical issues with one person. This way it buffers for that a little bit. And we like to use the broadcast messages to tell people when they should move on to the next person. So if it's a 15-minute breakout room, there's 3 people, just send a message every 5 minutes saying like, hey, make sure the next person has a chance to share, make sure everyone has a chance to share. And then at the end, have clear call to actions, next steps and to-dos, just to make sure everyone knows what's happening with the meeting and what they should do next. And there's so many, so let's move on to questions. There's so many questions in the doc already. Huge thanks for adding them in line. You can also add them in this Q&A section below if they don't fit in the notes. But I thought we could spend a few minutes answering some questions. So how do you do this? Yeah, after you upload a video to YouTube, there's an auto captioning queue. It is a little bit crowded right now, but Zoom also has auto captioning, which we found was a little bit less accurate than YouTube's, but both of them still work. Zoom's auto caption, the first 2 calls, they came back after maybe 10 minutes after the call, which is really fast. But I've heard of it coming back like 4 days later also. So it might take a while. It depends on the volume that's going on. Yeah. How do you resource these? Chat says use Slack and email and use the newsletter. Yeah, for summarizing on other channels. And graphic recording. I don't know what graphic recording is. Does anyone want to unmute and explain?
Yeah, it's when you have somebody drawing or, you know, like making a picture out of what people are seeing.
Yeah, I love that. I love when you have like a really good cartoonist who comes in and
I edited Hi, Cornelius. I'm just like, I heard it and someone offered it for me, like, but I don't know how it works. And I just wanted to know if someone has used it or has experience with that, how useful it is to graphic record a virtual conference. That's why I'm asking.
Right. Yeah, Jen, do you want to share with that your experience with graphic recording?
I have an example of sort of somebody who attended a talk I gave years ago, kind of did an image that was like a light version of this. Let me find it on my website.
Yeah, and where I have seen it work, Cornelius, it does make it a lot more accessible, and you get a nice visual representation of the talk. It's often better than anything like I could have put together. If you have like an actual person who's good at design putting something together, it is nice. I've never seen it done for a virtual event.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking, because I've seen it for offline. I've seen it for offline events many times. It's just like I try to match it for an online event. It's like, because the visual is kind of missing. So
right, and I know places like the Touring Way. Oh, sorry, was I? Go ahead, Dee.
I saw someone advertising themselves, offering up their services to do it for virtual events on Twitter.
Yeah.
Oh, so people are ready.
Artists are struggling. So.
Yeah. I could imagine, you know, let's say if like a speaker or a panelist or folks having a group discussion are not insistent on having like their Zoom portrait be the main thing on the screen or something like that, or if they're willing to maybe give up their own slides, I could imagine someone sharing their screen and working inside an illustration program off a tablet or something, doing that live virtually.
Oh, yeah, that'd be super
And
interesting.
then that could be the featured speaker for the call or the shared screen. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know the Touring Way, they hire a cartoonist to to capture talks, but then they use that in a book afterwards to sort of as their educational materials. So if you're planning on putting together something after the event, I can see that being really useful. Cool. Let's see, recommendations for live captioning. We've done live captioning for one event. We actually hired a, what are they called? Transcriptionists? Transcribers? Wow, thank you for the nods. We hired someone to do that. They're usually there for accessibility purposes. And it's not, it was pretty reasonable how much you paid for them, I think. So find a good transcriber. And Grant is answering inline also. I've never tried to do it like with an auto captioning system. I feel like that might not be as accurate. And we have a couple more minutes for questions. I thought we were over, but it was wrong.
Oh,
Any other questions? CTA does mean call to action. Thank you for that. I know we use a lot of acronyms and I forget.
Did you have any like, how did you tackle multilingualism? Well, not tackle, but like I'm organizing an event with people from around 70 countries, and I'm kind of worried about that they might not feel as included as possible. It is already challenging for an offline event to include so many people when the main language is English. How do you do that for an online event?
Yeah, I've been to virtual events where they have people transcribing the speaker in different languages and they can show up as captions. And I don't know if Zoom can do this, but it was a different platform that I can look up, but it allowed you to select what language you wanted to see the captions in. And it was a lot of manpower, to be honest. They had to have people manually putting in these transcriptions as the speakers were talking. But I feel like that was really great for accessibility and for making people from different languages feel welcome. For our calls, we don't quite have the manpower or talent to do that. So we try to speak slow enough, but I am guilty of not. But I do think having the shared notes help. So having someone taking notes, often that helps with people where English is their second language. You do have to know English though, but it is a little bit easier if you can read what's going on.
And one of our colleagues or fellow was mentioning something exactly like what Grant has described here as well. Grant, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the way I'm remembering it is it was a sort of neuroscience specific Zoom group that sort of gets together once a week. And we do have people across time zones from Europe and from America in some of these times. So since we try to break things out into topic-based breakout rooms, what we also did is just sort of go down to the participants button on the Zoom meeting, and then you can edit your name and you can put in the language code manually type in the language code where your name is, and that can help people like the organizers and the host of the meeting just sort of group people up, because hosts have the ability to either randomly assign people to breakout rooms or to manually put them together in certain groups.
Yep, great, thank you.
Thanks. Cool, and with that, I think maybe we should move on to the breakout rooms. Feel free to keep asking questions in the doc. Chad and I will be here to answer them. But Chad.
Yes, great segue. So maybe nod or raise a hand. Is this anyone's first breakout room experience that we're about to have? All right. Fantastic. Well, we hope that this is a super welcoming experience for you. We're going to enlist everyone else on the call who's been in a breakout room before to invite you into these kind of like small micro rooms or communities that we'll use to have a few deeper discussions before we move on. A breakout room, as Abby described, is like a smaller meeting room within this large metaphorical Zoom meeting room we are all in together right now. You can set them up randomly by like number of people you'd like to have in each room as a host in Zoom. It's a great feature. You can also set up those random rooms and then unassign and reassign folks so that you can get different groups together according to whatever your plan or whatever people's preferences are. That also lets you change up who's in the rooms during the course of a meeting. So if you have a workshop where it's important that people are in different groups as they go, you have a chance to kind of recombine that way as well. And there is a feature I've never used, but you can set up spreadsheets beforehand to import into a call that will like auto sort your rooms if you know exactly who's going to be attending. Now, our community participation guidelines, of course, will be in effect in these rooms as they are in the whole meeting, but we also have some particular asks for the breakout rooms today. This is a really important time to listen and to thank each other and to be sure to like share from your own experience. We want to, explicitly avoid judgment and solutioneering and explaining to people what they're doing wrong and what they should be doing. This is not the time for that. You should also only share what you feel comfortable sharing. It's fine to pass on a question. And I know there are many different kinds of ways, right, to give feedback. And depending on our different communities, where we are in the world, the kind of work we do, those can all be different. Some can be very direct, right? But I'm asking everyone to use a common denominator of kindness in the breakout rooms here. So affirming what people say, if they ask a question, speaking from your own experience and responses, totally what you should do. Just avoid judging, telling people what they should be doing. There will be a help button at the bottom of your breakout room. If you need help, you can click it, and Abby or I will come and join you and help you out if there's any kind of issue there. And what we'd like you to do in these breakout rooms is the following. First, please introduce yourself. Share a little about who you are, where you're from, and why you're on this call. Then, please share maybe a success from this week and a challenge from this week. Been in this new space together for a while. What's working? What are some things that you're still struggling with? And then the last question, maybe the most important one, is share something you've discovered about yourself or your team that you didn't realize before, a new strength that has come up and that you are using to kind of hold space for each other going forward. So introduce yourself, share a success, share a challenge, and share a strength you've discovered in yourself or your team. Any questions about those prompts? All right, Abby, can you make the breakout room magic happen?
Yes, so there's, hang on, I have to move. Most of you are in groups of 3. There's a couple groups of 4. You're gonna have a 14-minute countdown, followed by 1 minute before the breakout rooms just close.
And I'm gonna broadcast a little message every 5 minutes or so just to encourage you to include everyone and to move on to a new speaker if you haven't.
So we'll see you in 15 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. Can I get a quick thumbs? How was your breakout room? Good, medium, bad?
All right.
Cool, nice. And using the Zoom emojis, I like it. So we do want to hear a little bit about what happened in your breakout room. So in section 8, we have a little shared insight section. And there's a few prompts there. What did you discover? How can we help each other? What knowledge and resources do you have to share? Feel free to answer any of those prompts or just answer any notes or things that came up in your group. We've already heard that Elio shared some Zoom bombing experience and lots of connections in these groups.
Given our time, maybe we'll each share one thing and plus one other thing. Does that sound good, Abby?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't see the time. That sounds good. Share one thing, plus one thing. Yeah, so a lot of plus ones for making time to socialize, afternoon tea scheduled daily. And a nice shout out to Una. Nice to see you here. It's been a while. But I definitely agree with that. It's because we're missing a lot of that like social aspect before a meeting starts. It's nice to schedule that in. Yeah, and the digital divide and connectivity issues and moving from physical to virtual, it's definitely real. It's definitely something you have to think about. A couple other things that have a lot of plus ones is being more explicit about feelings in a remote setup since body language is reduced. Yeah, for sure. And I think, I know every team does this differently and I've heard it described as digital etiquette. But I do appreciate when people share their videos, so you can see a little bit of their body language. But I know bandwidth concerns, there's a lot of other reasons why you want to keep it off. Cool. Anyone want to share anything verbally that I haven't yet? It sounds like these are very helpful breakout rooms. One room in our first call found out they all had connections to the specific city in like the northeastern United States. That was a fun coincidence. But Chad, anything to add, or do you want to move on to closing circle?
I just think these are great, plus one several things myself, but yeah, let's move on to closing circle. So what we're gonna do at the end of each call is provide some space for reminders. We'll have some reminders, but this is the place where you should add reminders too. So if you have an event coming up, a webinar, a form of support you'd like to invite people to, you can totally add it there. We have a section for shares and shout outs that's meant to be for expressing gratitude. Who do you want to shout out? Who among your community members and colleagues is really helping you through this time, helping your team through this time? It's a nice place to recognize people there and hold them up in this community. And then there's a space for peer assists. So if you have an ongoing project, you're looking for contributors, you'd like to talk more about a particular topic, go ahead and put down maybe what it is that you would like help with here and how to get in contact with you. On Friday, when you get all the notes, the peer assist section of all the calls will be available to you. You can go through if you're looking for opportunities to contribute as well as putting your own peer assist requests in there. We then are providing some weekly resources. These are things that are meant to be timely that are coming through our feeds right now. This week, they're all about online meetings. Next week, they'll be about community care. And I just want to kind of pre-stress, right? Community care is something with a rich history, particularly in the activism of women of color, and you could spend a lifetime studying it. So please understand our weekly resources are things that are coming through now, and that there are broader and deeper conversations to have about all of these things that we can all participate in. There are some ways to stay involved with Mozilla if you're interested at the end, including an invitation, I believe, to our MozFest community Slack, where these conversations can continue in that client. And then at the bottom, but also in our reminders, there is a link to our survey. It's super important to Abby and me that we're able to respond to your feedback in as real time as possible. So we've taken feedback from meetings previous in this week and used them for this meeting. We'll take feedback you give us about this meeting and use it to improve next week's meeting for all the groups, including yours. I know that there's not really a definition between a busy time of day, non-busy time of day in this new environment. Things are happening all the time. Demands on us are coming from all over the place. But if you could take 5 minutes right after this meeting to make sure you get that survey done, it'll really help us hit the ground running tomorrow to begin planning changes and improvements for next week. So I guess I would just say, remember, for movement building, think about which of these practices we're sharing together right now are making you feel welcome in this new space, because your community is always going to be new for the newcomer, right? And the things we discover now, we can keep doing to help them feel invited and welcome and included, even after this time of uncertainty has passed. Again, please complete the survey. And as you get the notes and the recordings this Friday, if you'd like to invite more people to the calls, or just give folks who can't make the calls for whatever reason these materials, please do so. Abby, do you have any closing thoughts?
Huge thanks for all the input and how you've all interacted here. I really appreciate hearing all your thoughts and seeing all this come together. Yeah, next week we're talking about community care, so hope to see you all there. And if you registered, you'll be getting an email from me tomorrow with the recording and all the notes and reminders for some of the peer assists and things like that. But yeah, just huge thanks, everyone. And please fill out the survey. It helps us out. I've tried to talk slower today after feedback from yesterday. So things like that, really helpful for me. With that, I think we can close up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all so much for being here. Looking forward to continuing this journey with you and learning a lot from you in the coming weeks. Thank you for being a part of it.
Bye.